Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Pranav, for calling me here. And thank you so much, guys, for attending this. Because I think most of you are in college right now, attending classes, and after that, attending this course might be hectic. So I'll try to make it fun. It will be an interactive session as much as possible. So bilingual will be okay, or do you want me to speak in English? I can speak in Hindi. These two languages I'm prone with. So what do you guys want? You're okay with Hindi, English both?
Yeah, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, but
Yeah.
sometimes
Hmm.
a bit of clarification may be required.
Yeah, yeah. Whenever you guys feel that it's getting heavy, just let me know, stop and ask questions, no issues, okay?
Yes, sir,
So
thank you.
I'll ask you first, what is research? Just in brief, if anybody of you can tell me. Anyone, it's an interactive session, no issues. There are no right and wrong answers.
Sir, it is searching something again until you understand the point of its and how you want to put forth, and you get to the idea and what you want to put forth. You research, that is, you search again and again.
Okay. Anybody else? So if we consider the last statement, so we will conclude that there are no unique problems. We are searching something which is already existing. So maybe we are going to a nuanced area of something which is already there. So that is what research is. Research can be defined as search for the knowledge or any systematic investigation to establish the facts. Then again, a careful investigation for new facts in any branch of knowledge. So I'll explain. Most of the things are already existing. We'll try to go deeper and deeper into it in order to research something which is already there. Most of the things have already been searched. So what, as a researcher, we'll try to bring new element or new dimension of the same problem. So why do we do research? You can read it, but I'll try to go one by one. It's the desire to get a research degree along with the consequential benefits. So it's the basically the economic aspect of it. All of us want job. That is why we are going into research because that might be able to give us a job. Desire to face the challenges in solving the unsolved problem. So when we talk about legal theory, this might not be 100% applicable because we are not solving any problem, we are searching which is already there. So this solver problem solving element mostly comes in the research when there is a scientific research. For example, finding a cure of a disease, for example coronavirus. So something which is unresolved, so trying to finding a solution for the same is usually a scientific element. Then desire to get intellectual joy of doing something creative at work. Then desire to be service of society, desire to get respectability, directives of government, empowerment, and conditions. So first, when we start a research, first we need to choose a subject. And before that, there are some elements of it based on an idea, based on your experience, based on your reading and originality. So I think these are the four core principles. So idea can be taken from somebody else, or it can be developed on somebody else's ideas. Then it can be on your experiences as well. Somebody has experienced something of his own can be a research topic for that person based on a reading. So then it comes to the literature review part. You read a lot on your topic, a particular topic, and you are able to identify a few gaps, that these are the gaps in the particular area. For example, when we talk about space law, so there are no convention treaties which India is obligated to in the in the area of space law. So there are a lot of gray areas. In those gray areas, you will be able to research better because the area is vast. Then always as a researcher, try to bring originality because everything in this era of technology, most of the things are already being researched upon. So try to bring the originality aspect in the same. That should always be a focus of a researcher. These are some important features of a research design. First, you need to have a plan. Specify the sources and the type of information which are relevant to the research problem. And you need to also basically develop which approach will be used for gathering the analyzing the data, whether it will be primary or secondary, whether it will be a doctrinal research, non-doctrinal research, how you are going to collect the data, and other elements and nuances of it. Then it's a very important, third point is very important, time and budget. Most of these studies are these two main. For example, when you do a masters, most of the colleges is a 1 year course, or in some colleges as well, it was in mine, it was a 2 year course. So your research need to be time specific. You cannot go beyond a particular frame of time. Then budget is also constrained. In most of the universities, grants are given. So in that particular budget, you need to fit your result, fit your research in the time frame, because it's an exhaustive and a long process. Then these are the characteristics of research. Systematic research, logical, empirical, these are the basically few characteristics of research. All steps must be interrelated to one another, that is systematic. Logical, agreeing with the principles of logic. You cannot come up with some random research idea which has no logic to it. So it needs to be always backed up by facts or doctrine or theory. You cannot, for example, gravity is already existing theory. Now you cannot come up with something which basically defy or reject the idea of gravity. So it will be highly illogical. That is why your research question, your research domain should be logical in nature. Then empirical. Conclusion should be based on your evidence and observations. Now, for example, you are conducting a research on basically population of India, for example. Now, the results should be based on the evidences and the observations you have received. For example, you have taken census as this primary source of information in order to numbers which are there for the population. Now, you cannot defy from, or basically you cannot reject what is already given in the census, because census is a data collection process which was extensively done by government. So you cannot, on the basis of the evidences which you have collected in your study, you cannot basically differ from the same. Then objectivity, it must answer the research questions. It should be reproducible, basically replicable. For example, this is a scientific element. If you are able to produce something, the same repeat, the same basically, the experiment can be replicated again and again and again. Every time it should not give you different result. For example, you are making the vaccine of COVID. Now, COVID every time cannot have a different set of results. The vaccine. Then the quality control, accurate measurements need to be taken. These are applicable basically on the scientific side, not on the legal side. These are the type of research. So we'll go one by one to different type of research. Before moving forward, do you have any doubts so far, or any clarification you need, or you're able to understand what I am saying? Or is it monotonous?
No doubt, sir.
No doubt so far? Is it okay? You can
Yes, sir,
stop it
absolutely
there,
fine.
because yeah, because it's monotonous for me. I'm saying it until that there this is heavy, or you're not able to understand anything, just let me know. Okay,
Yes, sir.
so far so good. So now we'll move forward to different types of research. So just have a read on this: pure and applied research, exploratory and formulative research, descriptive, diagnostic. I'll be explaining each of it in the later slides. So we'll start with pure and applied research. It is the study of search of knowledge. And applied research is the study of finding solution to a particular problem. So in pure research, basically, it's more sort of a philosophical research. You are trying to generate knowledge. You are trying to generate the knowledge bank. For example, the kind of research which was done in Leviathan or by Socrates, Aristotle, those were pure in nature. Those researches, those studies were just to understand the knowledge, was to understand the behavior of people, nature of society, and all these things were being understood in the philosophical aspect. In applied research, you try to find a solution to a particular problem. The example which I have given before, vaccine for COVID. It's an attempt to find solution to a particular problem. There was a problem, pandemic was existing. So a lot of applied research was being done in order to find a solution for the same. Now, the purpose of pure and applied research. So pure research is usually conducted to contribute new facts, can put theory to rest, may aid in conceptual clarification. It may integrate previously existing theories. So you might have heard about Hart-Fuller debate or Noam Chomsky debate with Randall as a debate. So these debates were sort of discourse in order to understand different elements of different theories of different subjects. So pure theory is just to generate knowledge on a particular subject. Those knowledge then amplify and get applied to different forms or usages. In applied research, the intent is very clear from the start. There is a problem existing and we need to find a solution for the same. But in the pure research, we are not finding a solution for something. You are just trying to expand the knowledge base. Understand the difference between two. Everyone, you on the same page?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So now, as this term exploratory or formulative research itself means, exploratory research is a preliminary study of an unfamiliar problem about which the researcher has no or little knowledge. So you are exploring something. For example, you are in a first year of your law school or college, whatever it is, you are introduced to a new subject. You try to read different book on the same subject. I'll take another example. For example, in class 8th or 7th, we were introduced to trigonometry. We were trying to explore the different elements of trigonometry. We are not finding any solutions. Trigonometry were not offering any solutions to us. There were none problem. We were just trying to explore something. So that is basically in order to understand more about the subject. This is for the researcher. Researcher is exploring something and trying to research on something in order to understand or basically develop more knowledge for himself. This is an exploratory way of doing something. The purpose is to generate new idea. Once you have good control or basically good command over particular area of law or subject, now once you're clear with the basic, then only you can move forward to identify the gaps. Unless you are not clear about the basics of something, it will be very difficult to identify the gap. Because if you are thinking that this is a gap, because you have little knowledge, that is why you are thinking this is the gap. But this might not be the case most of the time. So first, in order to identify the gap, you need to have an exploratory approach to everything. So even research methodology is not about finding research or doing research. It should be applied in your day-to-day life. Even if you're seeing a life problem in your life. For example, you are going through any crisis. So first you need to understand or explore what are the different elements of that crisis, how it's going to impact you. Then only you are able to basically find a problem or basically find a solution for the same. So second point, we can see the increase the researcher's familiarity with the problem. So the whole purpose of exploratory research method is to understand or basically develop knowledge for yourself. It is not for the society or bring change or to solve a problem. And it's third, to gather information for clarifying concepts to determine whether it is feasible to attempt this study or not. So basically exploratory research will give you a rough idea whether you have an interest in this subject or not. For example, I've started seeing a research question, I have started researching about geography. But after going or reading one or two articles of geography, I realized that it is not my cup of tea. So while exploratory process, I'll get to be aware about the fact that whether I really like it or want to move forward for it or not. Then descriptive. As the name describes, it is the simplest and the easy type of research. You are describing something. Basically, descriptive study is a fact-finding investigation with adequate interpretation. It is designed to gather descriptive information and provides information for formulating one or more sophisticated studies. Data are collected using observation, interview, and mail questionnaire. So it's similar to the exploratory one. It's describing a problem. And sometimes even describing a problem can be considered as a way of research. You are just stating different problems, describing what are the different consequences of the same problem. It will be categorized in the descriptive form of research. The focus of this is directly on a theoretical point. Does not have a practical implication per se. It can highlight more important methodological aspect of data collection and interpretation. So in descriptive research, basically you take a lot of interviews, you take surveys, you collect data from different people and understand. So for example, whether attention span due to increase in our technological advancement is reducing our attention span or not. This is a descriptive problem. Now you're researching through questionnaires, you're asking different people whether their attention span is reducing or not, whether the advancement of technology is helpful for them or it's a difficult situation, creating a difficult situation for them, creating more dependency. So these are the descriptive research. You're basically identifying the problems. Once you have identified the problem, then only you will be able to go to the next stage to solve those problems. Now comes the evaluation studies. It's a one type of applied research. It is made for assessing the effectiveness of social or economic programs implemented for assessing the impact of developmental projects in the area. You might have heard about environmental impact assessment, EIA. Have you heard about it? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Can you tell me more about the environment impact assessment? For example, if there is a company and that company need to follow some checks and balances, there are some norms by environment which they need to follow. So before starting a project, for example, for example, Amazon is coming in India, they will run an evaluation survey on different aspects, whether there is a availability of land, whether the taxes regime is easy. So all these evaluation will basically come in the evaluation studies. You are basically evaluating something before starting a business. You evaluate this market, you evaluate your target audience. So this type of studies basically give you a futuristic approach for the same before even starting something. It's basically assessment. So most this evaluation studies is usually taken by big companies. When they invest, before investing, they do a evaluation study. They need to check the environmental compliance. They need to check the tax regime. They need to check lot of labor issues, labor laws. So that is the evaluation method of research which they follow. The purpose of this is to direct to assess, appraise the quality and quantity of activity and its performance, to specify its attribute and condition required for its success. For example, if I am coming with a new clothing brand, if I want to release certain apparel for Adidas or Nike, so I will do a survey, I will evaluate whether this sort of product will be success in the market of India or not, or what should be the market for this. So we will do a evaluation study. So this is the main purpose of this. Then action research. Action research is basically a subset of scientific research. It's action oriented. You already have a problem in existence. Now you are trying to solve that problem. Read the first line. The researcher attempt to study action. Example, eradication of malaria. So malaria is existing, other diseases are also existing. So now the focus is to solve this. That is why it's called action research. The objective and the orientation is very clear from the start, that it is for something to solve. The baseline survey of a pre-action situation. It's a baseline survey for a pre-action situation. The feasibility of the study of the proposed action program. Planning and launching of the program. So this action survey basically done on a small scale. Vaccine is the best example because vaccine is not directly released to the general masses. First a lot of survey and trial tested on different species. For example, it was earlier used to done on rat, now it is banned. It's done on monkeys because somewhere they were our ancestors, it's often been said. So the purpose is to basically solve a problem and test it before releasing it in the general market. Then experimental research is commonly used in sciences such as sociology, psychology, physics. You experiment something, it's a hit and try. For example, all the scientific tests are basically an example of experimental research. You do a lot of experiment, sometimes you fail, sometimes if these results are consistent, then it will be considered as the full proof or basically the successful experimental research. The purpose is to predict the phenomena. If A leads to B, if every time A, the cause is leading to the result B, then it is consistent. It will be considered as an experimental research. If every time the results are different, then it will be difficult to come to a single result.
So,
Yeah.
you spoke about action research and how that is also a type of scientific research where we go through experiments and come to a conclusion. You spoke about experimentation on animals. Isn't action research and experimental research one and the same?
It's not exactly one and the same. So action research, our objective is clear from the start. There is a problem existing and we are trying to find a solution for the same. But in experimental research, we are experimenting. It's more or less same. It's not exactly same. Sometimes there existing a problem, or sometimes you are experimenting. For example, the relative gravity and the quantum physics, basically, all the, for example, existence of black hole. So the theories around it, the quantum physics research, a lot of experiments are different results. So the experimental research is a little different from the action research because action research, the problem is the focus. There is existing a problem. For example, eradication of malaria. So malaria is a problem and the whole research or the approach is to find the solution for the same. But in experimental research, we are not directly looking for a solution. We are trying to experiment and try to basically bring out new phenomena or to work around new phenomena. For example, in the recent we can see fossil fuels. We are burning fossil fuels, and there might be a shift to hydrogen or different sort of fuels, such as green fuels. So now a lot of experiments are being conducted around it. The whole evolvement and the upbringing of the e-vehicles are a result of this experimental research. We were aware about the problem that the fossil fuels are burning. That was a problem in the state. Now, a lot of experiments on different phenomena is done in order to identify what can be the alternate solution for the same. So that was the approach experimental research took place.
Got it, sir.
Got it? Now, historical research. So, historical research, the classic example is Harappan civilization and Mohenjo-daro civilization. You might be wondering why there is still scavenging or extraction of all those things. It is important because whatever happened in past, it's often say it will repeat in the future. So those civilizations were distinct. Now they are not existing anymore. So there might be some calamity, there might be some epidemic that leads to the total destruction of the same. We are still not concrete about it. That is why historical research is important. in order to understand what happened in past and to basically be prepared for the future. That is why all the things which happened in the past, extraction of caves, finding new materials inside the ocean. Recently, you might have heard what happened when people went to see the Titanic, basically the debris of Titanic, 4 people died. So, why it is important to research about history? Because that's some sort of from the mistakes we have done in the past. We'll be able to correct or rectify that in the future. That is why whole archive and archival things, research of history becomes important, and it's not obsolete in nature. It will never be, because whatever we are doing even today, maybe 500 years from now, that becomes a research for the future generation. For example, again, the corona, the existence of COVID might be a topic for research after 500. It's already there, but after 500 years from now, people might be interested what happened in our civilization. That is why historical research is important. It draws explanation and generalization from the past trends in order to understand the present and to anticipate the future. So it really helps to basically prepare ourselves for future. It enables us to grasp our relationship with the past and plan more intelligibly in the future. I think it's a myth, because whatever we are doing today, the problems are, the way we are approaching to solutions are different. The problems are also evolving. So whatever problems were faced by our older generation 2000 years from now might be different today. And it's not absolute, but we are learning from our past, and that might really help. Then survey research. Basically, it works on a feedback. You might have seen while using YouTube or other networking sites, the survey forms pop up in between. So, what is the purpose to serve of these survey forms, these feedback forms? Basically, to improve whatever is existing right now. It's one of the important areas to measurement to applied social research, broad area research and process measurement procedure. The survey can be anything from a short paper pencil feedback form to intensive one-to-one and depth interview. So survey research basically R&D, research and development wing, which most of the technological advancement is completely based on. It's most of the time based on our feedback. That is why survey research is important, and that is the purpose of this research. It seeks responses directly from the respondents. So it's quick, effective, there might be biasness. For example, Instagram recently releases Thread. So now a survey will definitely be conducted on Thread to understand whether it is better from Twitter, it is not better from Twitter, and how they can improve, and should there be an improvement, there should be an alternative. So these sort of research are time-based research, and these are directly respondents are the main key stakeholders in these sort of research. Now, case study is a research methodology common in the social sciences. It is based on in-depth investigation of a single individual. Groups or events explore causation in order to understand underlying principle. So, lot of research has been done in past on few individuals as well. For example, a lot of research has been done on the approach Hitler has taken to rule the world, whether it is a correct approach or it's not the correct approach. A lot of research has been done on Nuremberg trial, whether it is the right way for execution, it's not the right way. So a lot of theories have been developed on case studies. So case studies are also done in the literal case studies. For example, Keshwanand Bharti. It's a remarkable case. Lot of case studies has been done in order to identify what are the basic structure of Indian Constitution and how it can be evolved. So all the case studies of a particular person or a judgment are the basic basis of research in this. The purpose of this to examine limited number of variables. Case study method involve in-depth longitudinal examination of a single instance or event. Multiple events are not being taken place. You are basically focusing on one particular case study involving maybe one or two people. Then field research. Field research basically assists in lot of research methods, such as survey research is conducted on field as well. So field research has traditionally been thought different from method of research conducted in laboratory or academic purpose setting. So it's a all the law students, for law students, we don't really conduct field research. Most of our research is doctrinal based or basically literature review and finding the gaps. It's more also a social science research when it comes to field study. Go out on the field, ask people questions, conduct formal interviews, informal interviews, circulate questionnaires. All these are the purpose and the way to conduct field study. These are the two methods, qualitative and quantitative. This is the research method. So qualitative basically asks answer question why to any question. And quantitative basically how much, or basically it's numeric based. So if you want to study about behavior or emotions, the kind of research method you will follow will lie under qualitative research. But if you want to know how many people are interested in a particular thing, how many and what are the numbers, when it comes to specific numeric digit, it will be quantitative in nature. So far, so good. Now we'll be moving to research design. Any doubt in between? Any issues you faced or anything else?
No, sir.
Guys, you are very smart because if somebody would be teaching me all of this will be heavy on me. But you guys are clear. You don't have any doubts. You understood everything. You guys are brilliant. You can ask anything you want if you face any issue or you're not able to understand anything. I'll share this PPT with the organizers. You can have a look because I think PPT was self-explanatory. I tried to put as much word as possible in basically in simple language in order to make you understand. Apart from this, anybody has any doubt? Should we move forward?
The session. Maybe I also want to see how clear.
Yeah, Pranav, you were saying something?
Yeah, is my voice audible?
Yeah, now it's audible.
Hello. Yeah. Yeah. I was just saying that in case I see that everybody is very much clear with the concept, maybe it's you who is teaching very well, or I don't know what is the thing. So maybe you can test them at the end of the session and ask maybe some basic questions about your session. Then I will also be sure about how the process begins.
Yeah, Deepansh.
Sir, which researches are more in demand, like theoretical one or the applied researches? Because sir, I have heard like the most renowned journals like Scopus, they are more focusing on the applied researches. So, what are your point of view on this?
I think I agree with you because applied research or the real-time research basically serve the purpose of anything. I would not say doctrinal research is obsolete, but the way technology and the way things are evolving, we need real-time research. So applied research, definitely field work, survey research is the great example. The way Apple works is technology, they invest so much in research and development and they are able to fix all the bugs in a real time. So they conduct real time research, applied research, survey research, and they are able to correct all the mistakes which we have done, which they have done in their past version of softwares. So I'm talking about more on a technological term, but applied research definitely in demand. But it does not mean that the this will make the doctrinal research basically obsolete in nature or redundant. It has its own advantages. So, but yeah, it's seeing the market right now. I think applied research and real-time research is more preferred by most of the journals like Scopus, Taylor and Francis, Routledge, because that is bringing policy change. I'll talk more about in the policy change the work we do in NHRC towards the end of the presentation, and I'll tell you why we also basically follow applied research in our projects. So I'll explain you the same in the last.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Guys, कोई भी क्वेश्चन हो आराम से पूछ लेना, हिंदी इंग्लिश नो बार. Try to make it a interactive session. I know my camera is not working, so might not be able to interact with you that well. But अगर कुछ भी doubt हो तो just let me know. ठीक है? So now moving forward on research design. Research design means drawing for research. It's a systematic planning for conducting research. So whenever you approach a problem, you need to have a blueprint or basically a map in mind. How would you, for example, you have identified a problem, but how would you approach it? How to solve it? So you need to have a design in mind, a roadmap. It is called research design in research. It aims to achieve goal of the research. What are the need of research and why we really need a research design? Need and purpose for the same. It helps in a smooth sailing of the research process because you have basically imagined about the problem, the way you are going to approach the problem and the way you are going to solve it. So it will make your task easy. Now you have a path to follow. If you don't have a path to follow, you will be confused in between. Different external variables might basically hamper your research. That is why you need to have a clear research design in your mind before basically sailing. For example, you want to reach somewhere, so you need to know the address where you want to reach. You should know the route where you want to reach rather than just going and figuring out where you have to reach. So it saves money, manpower, and material definitely. Because, for example, if your path is not clear and you have invested a lot of money in half of the research, then you realize no, this is not the right path. Now coming back and starting again will consume time, money, manpower, material, everything. And when it comes to basically doing a research in a course like master's or PhD, it's time specific. For example, in master's, if half of the semester is gone and you approached the research problem in a very wrong way, then it will be very difficult for you to complete that research in less like in rest of the time. It helps the researcher for advanced planning and avoids duplication. It helps to modify research if any difficulties. It gives reality to the research. Now research design process. We'll go one by one. First, selection of research topic and problem. First, we'll go with the topic. First, you need to identify, for example, in which area of law you want to conduct research, whether it will be criminal research, in civil law, or in company law, intellectual property right, technology law. First, you need to identify the topic. Then you will come down to niche. What is the topic? For example, you have taken information technology law as your topic. Now you need to identify what part you want to focus. So now data privacy is a big debate and discourse in the present sense. Now you need to evaluate whether this new bill correctly able to protect the data and privacy of citizen and individual or not. This can be a research question. Now this was a vague research problem. Now framing a research design. You need to frame step by step. How will you approach this? For example, you have identified that you will approach the data privacy and data protection bill. How will you approach it? Which method you will follow? What is the time frame and how much time you will submit the result? Then framing sample design. Collection of data, whether there need to be a collection of data, whether you will conduct a survey in order to understand whether this bill is properly protecting our rights or not. What sort of survey it will be, whether you will send the questionnaire on email, whether you will go and ask, collect the survey door to door. How will you analyze data? In data analysis, different tools are basically used. There is SQL, Strata. These are tools which basically it's a different form of Excel. It's an advanced form of Excel in simple terms. You will fill the data in sheets and you will get the results. So maybe Pranav can introduce you to SQL by some expert in another session because these things, these methods, while analyzing the data, are very contemporary in nature and many people are using it. So I think it's a skill and all of you should learn it, how to analyze data. Then writing research report. Once you have analyzed all the problem, you have gathered your result. Now you need to write the research report with your conclusion, observations, and all the recommendations which you have made so far. Then characteristics of good research design. So research design should not be very rigid. It should be flexible in nature. Maybe, for example, your time frame of research is 6 months, and in 15 days you realize that I need to change the research methodology or the research method the way I approach the problem. So you should be flexible about it. You cannot be rigid about it. No, no, I have already decided that I'll go from point A to point B, and this will be the route. What if that route is wrong? So you can also go from A to C, then you can go to C to B. So that is your research design should be. It should be flexible in nature. It should be economical. You need to understand the constraint. These are the real life constraint. If you want to pursue your career in academics or basically want to pursue PhD in future life, economic or basically the funding plays a very important role. If you are allotted a certain amount of budget, you need to be clear where you are using. You need to have a roadmap for the same. Then it should not be biased. Most of the time the researcher, what researchers does or basically do is they get attached to a research problem, and before even approaching the research problem they develop certain biases. For example, I am researching on socio-economic aspect of citizen after 2014, or maybe basically in the current regime of this government. So I might have few biasness towards the research problem. So this should not be there. The researcher should be free from any social, economic, political, any influence. It should be objective and it should be fact-based. It should never be driven from any ulterior motive or biasness or attachment or emotions. Then it will be called a good research. Fourth, it should fulfill the objective of the research. Most of the time it happens during the long research is that the researcher get deviate from the research objective which they had initially framed. They started liking the topic, then they go into different elements of it, and by the end of the study they realize that the objectives are not fulfilled. They have gathered a lot of knowledge, but the way they have approached the problem is not right, and the intent which initially they have created to fulfill the research objectives is not being done. So in the starting, you need to have a good research design where you are clear about the fact that the research objective needs to be fulfilled. Then the fifth, it should try to achieve the correct result. It's related to the third point. Correct result, it means that it should not be biased in nature. If you are basically failing in the hypothesis, you should be upfront about it that my hypothesis failed. You should not manipulate the data. You should not change the research design or the data you have collected in certain way in order to basically suit or support your inner biasness. These things need to be kept in mind by the researcher while doing the research. Then it provides scientific and factual base for the research. It also should facilitate to complete the research within stipulated time. Time and money. These are the two basic elements I have already informed in the initial of this PPT that these are major constraints when it comes to real-time result. Now the functions of research design. It's provide a blueprint, I've already informed. It limits the boundaries of a research because basically time and money is those two pillars on which the research stands. And if we start exploring different avenues, the time will also lapse and the money will also exhaust, and the research will be hanging in between. I've seen lot of time with lot of researchers that they either exhaust time and or exhaust money, due to which they are not able to fulfill or complete their research, and it will be left in between. So it will not serve the ultimate purpose of the research. They might have a very novel idea, but due to these two constraints, they will not be able to basically fetch or basically chase that idea towards its end. Now the components of research. It's basically the structure of your research study, the title of investigation or research question, whatever you say. You need to have the purpose, the study need to have a purpose. Why you are really conducting that research? Is it really relevant? You need to ask these practical questions to yourself before basically starting with it. Now, review of literature is very, very important part because most of the time what happens, we think that it is a gap in the law or a research problem. But once you start reading the literature, you might realize this problem has already been solved by somebody else 50 years ago. You might have realized that this is a problem today. It is a lack of knowledge on your part, but somebody might have already solved that problem, not only identified that problem. So, literature of review becomes a very relevant portion in any research conducted by any researcher. So, always the literature review should be thematic in nature. It should be chronological order, starting from the recent to basically going to the origin and how it started. Classics need to be added, contemporary need to be added, but the literature review really need to spend at least 40 to 50% of your research time, because you need to be completely sure that this is genuinely a research gap. It should not be कि after 5 months you are realizing, oh, this was not a research gap at all. Then statement of problem and the scope of investigation. You need to basically limit the scope of investigation and research. You cannot research everything on a particular topic in a limited time frame. Objective of the study needs to be very clear in the start. Why you are doing this research. What will you try to achieve in the end of this result? Then hypothesis, selection of a sample, data collection, and analysis of data. And once analysis of data, then it's come the report writing and conclusion. Basically, whatever you have gathered, whatever you understood, you'll write in the conclusion, present it as your findings. And those findings basically highlight the gap and show what all recommendations. If it is policy oriented, then you need to highlight which laws government need to more focus on in order to basically deal with the particular problem. Now, non-experimental design. So there are experimental design which are main scientific in nature. Today we are not delving into the scientific nature. We are going to the non-experimental research design. Case study is one. Content analysis, basically literature review, doctrinal research. Third one is interview. Survey research, exploratory, all these things will come in the interviews. An interview has a sub part, basically focus group. So focus group discussions are discussions with the core stakeholders of that particular domain. For example, right to food. So who are the stakeholders of that particular domain? You need to basically by consulting them and then basically build your research. The trajectory you will follow. कैसे अप्रोच करोगे इस रिसर्च को?
Sir, maybe go for quantitative analysis.
क्वांटिटेटिव एनालिसिस में क्या क्या देखोगे क्वांटिटेटिव एनालिसिस में?
सर हम बेसिकली सर्वे अरेंज करेंगे जिसमें हम देखेंगे कि कितने लोग इस बात से एग्री कर रहे हैं और जिसको भी इससे जो भी एक प्रॉपर्ली हम डाटा जो है वो बनाएंगे ना पहले
Exactly. So
Yeah.
qualitative research भी इसमें ऐड होगी क्या? बोलिए बोलिए. Anybody else? Qualitative research, I completely agree. We will ask people whether you have enough food to eat, whether you feel that there is a scarcity. That is a survey. This involves survey research method. Anybody else? How will we approach this problem? If as a researcher I want to see कि due to overpopulation, will it impact food security in India or it will lead to scarcity of food in India? How will I approach?
Sir, economical research,
Hmm.
like research
Elaborate
of the
more on
economy.
इकोनॉमिक रिसर्च थोड़ा बताएंगे अब इस बारे में किस तरह से आप अप्रोच करेंगे आप लोगों की परचेसिंग पावर पैरिटी चेक करेंगे कि क्या वो अफोर्ड कर पा रहे हैं ये चीज चेक करेंगे
Not just that, sir, like economical research, as in how much the food prices have gone up, how much, because of population, farmers are facing problems, and then because of population, the hospital, all of those things will come in, sir.
डेफिनेटली बिल्कुल आई एग्री विथ यू हम सप्लाई चेक करेंगे basic rule of economics. If demand increase, supply is also supposed to be increased. But if supply is not increasing, there will be a scarcity. So we will check whether in producing feed the rest of the India. Now, how will we analyze this? First, one particular house every day. We will multiply that by a month, then we'll multiply that by a whole year. Then we'll see how much amount is being produced by India. For example, how much wheat India produced, how much rice India produced, and whether it is enough for rest of the India or not. That is how we'll approach this problem. We'll have a research design, we will do survey, and we will see qualitative method, quantitative method. That's how hypothesis. And there might be a possibility that I have overpopulation will lead to scarcity of food in India. So now I am assuming here that overpopulation, there will be a scarcity of food in India. But results might be contrary. ऐसा भी हो सकता है ड्यू टू रिजल्ट ऐसे आए कि the production of food is much higher in India as compared to the population. We are able to basically feed the population. तो आपकी हाइपोथेसिस बट इसका ये मतलब नहीं कि आपकी हाइपोथेसिस आपने जो वेरिएबल दो लिए थे आप उसको प्रूव पॉजिटिवली नहीं कर पाए बट नेगेटिवली हो गए तो ऐसा नहीं आपका रिसर्च डिजाइन गलत हो गया इट्स जस्ट दैट यू आर नॉट एबल टू प्रूव दोज वेरिएबल so that will also you will write in your research in the findings that you are not able to have a positive relation between the two variables and there is a negative null hypothesis what we call. So when is an hypothesis is formulated? Hypothesis is formulated after the problem has been stated and the literature study has been conducted. I've already informed you literature review is a very, very important part. Hypothesis is formed once you are sure, you are completely confident that literature clearly shows that there is a gap in this. Then only hypothesis will be basically of good quality and you will be able to get good results. It's formulated totally aware of the theoretical and empirical background to the problem. Basically, search of literature, literature reviews done, then you will be able to form. Now, what are the characteristics of hypothesis? It should strive to furnish explain or making, for example, the example I have given you. So it is acceptable. If I am able to build the results on the facts, whatever I've gathered, it will be acceptable in nature because I am proving with facts or economic surveys or quantitative results or basically economic implications of the same, seeing how much farmers are producing, all those things. These are my facts on the basis of which I am producing the result. It must be verifiable. Obviously, if the facts are correct, taken from good source, from authentic government data, then it will be verified. It's not like I am making up the facts. I am taking the facts from the government data. So it is acceptable. It must be formulated in simple and understandable terms. I think it's self-explanatory. It should correspond with the existing knowledge. Now sampling. Sampling is the process of selecting a small number of elements from a larger defined. So when we take, we cannot survey all the people. We need to take a sample. And how sample is selected? Sample is selected from different. So sampling error, first we'll understand sampling error is a type of bias that is attributed to mistakes in either drawing the sample or determining the sample size. If I am researching about something and I have selected all my friends in that sample and I know what result it, for example, if I'm asking my friends opinion on a particular teacher and you already know that your friends have a certain biasness towards that teacher, and even after knowing that you select your friends to basically go for the survey and fill the questionnaire, so that is a biasness. The sampling is an error itself. You are already aware that how these respondents going to respond and still you are going ahead with it. That is a sampling error. Now developing a sampling plan. Define the population of interest, identify a sampling frame if possible, select the sampling method, determine the sample size, and execute the sampling plan. So this is the approach you need to follow. First, you need to define which sort of population you will take. If you are taking, for example, how many people eat ice cream, and you are taking sample of those people who are not eating ice cream or who cannot eat ice cream, who basically cannot afford ice cream. So that is a not right way of sampling any particular research. So you need to take in account that if that is applicable to particular set of audience or not. If you are taking, if you're taking an example whether internet is effective for people or internet is helping people in education and you are taking the sample survey in a remote village of India where there is no electricity, no internet, then sampling those people might not be relevant for your research design. So you need to be aware of which population you are targeting. Now probability sampling and non-probability sampling. So these are basically the way you sample. It's a method of sampling. Type of sampling method, probability sampling, basically sample random sampling, systematic random sampling, stratified random sampling. These are basically technical in nature, so today I will not go in details. I'll share the slides and provide the details for the same because it will be too technical in nature for now. Now moving forward is the another element of data collection. Data collection possibilities are wide and varied with any one method of collection not inherently better than any other. Data collection process is the collection of data, rigorous and systematic design, execution that includes thorough planning, well-considered development, and how you basically collect data. It can be on field, it can be by it can be different surveys. So I'll give you how you collect data. So you can collect data from advantage and disadvantage. You can have face-to-face interviews. You can have telephonic conversations. Most of the time you might have called at the customer care service and the end of the call, they might have asked you, can we have a telephonic interview? How was the feedback? So this is the telephonic interview. It's a way of basically understand what sort of is the last slide research project in NHRC. So the question which other person has asked before, based research. Any questions so far? We can discuss if anything else you're not able to understand. You basically just a remind, like basically recall of whatever you have discussed. We have understood research design, different way to approach a research, how to conduct research, data collection process, sampling, hypothesis, all these things. Which are, these are the basic, the four elements how you approach any of the research. Any doubt with this? All of you understood everything?
I think Deepansh, sorry to interject in between. I believe that the slide you had actually presented spoke a lot because that was very, go to research something like that, and it was very simplistic and easy to understand. So I think that can be one of the reasons that students are quiet. Another reason can be that they are not attentive. So maybe you can pose some questions to them in order to test how attentive they were. Just random, any one question to any one guy, so that even I can understand that how good they are maybe concentrating on. So
No, no, particularly I would not like to do that because
because
that will
I would also want some interactive sessions to be taken in. But
yeah,
then I saw that most of the students, maybe only Krishna and other uh, two students were asking the question. So
maybe
that's
I'm a
not
very
expected.
boring teacher. I think I'm a very boring teacher because
No, not
nobody
at all,
really
not at all. Guys, had Deepansh been anyway boring throughout the session? Anybody, please?
was it really
No, sir, not at all.
you are
No, no,
able
no,
to
no, not at all.
आप लोग को
See,
समझ में आया ना क्योंकि पर्पस ये था कि आप लोग कुछ सीखें तो ये थोड़ा समझ रहा हूँ मैं टेक्निकल है इसीलिए जो स्लाइड थी बहुत डिटेल इन नेचर थी बट मैं चाहता हूँ कि आप लोगों को कोई भी चीजें नहीं समझ में आए तो आप पूछ लो क्योंकि एक दिन में ये समझ में नहीं आता हम भी कंटिन्यूसली सीख ही रहे हैं even this date, me and Pranav are still reading and researching again and again. We also get confused. So even आप ये आराम से स्लाइड पढ़ो जाके इफ यू फेस एनी डाउट्स आप बाद में प्रणव को अप्रोच करके बोल देना देन वी कैन हैव अ डाउट क्लियरिंग सेशंस एज वेल बाद में अगर आपको कोई भी रिसर्च मेथड में डाउट लगता है कोई पॉइंट आपको नहीं समझ में आता सो जस्ट डू लेट प्रणव नो एंड प्रणव विल कोऑर्डिनेट विद मी
yeah, definitely. Anyway, you are going to have your next session tomorrow itself. So maybe today they will have the PPT which you have shared. Maybe I'll share it with them, and then in the next session they can anyway ask it, right?
आई होप सो
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
आई
Maybe.
थिंक दिस वाज लाइक
Yes, yes,
10 from
Deepansh.
my end yeah.
Sorry. Come again.
That is what I'm saying. It was just all from my end. I've completed. If anybody has
Okay.
any doubt,
Yeah.
or they can come tomorrow if they have any doubt.
Yeah, yeah, definitely we are going to have the session tomorrow. So maybe right now, just go through the PPT once and see if you are maybe getting into some clutches or don't know how to get out of it. So tomorrow is your day again. And for those students who are actually working on the concerns of maritime issues and other issues like that, I just told you in the initial session that Deepansh is one of the point person who can actually get into the details of it, right? And he'll surely be one of those person who will be the point person to guide you or be the expert, right? So you can also ask some of your doubts relating to your research topic which you are working on, right? So that's
Sir,
it for
am I
today. So,
hello?
Pragati,
Yes, sir.
yeah,
Hello, Deepansh, sir, am I audible?
Yeah, yeah,
I
you.
would just request if you could just share the PPT so
Yeah,
that I
yeah,
think all of us could just refer it
yeah.
in case
Definitely,
anyone has missed
I'll
it.
share the PPT with
Okay,
Pranav, and Pranav will let you know.
okay, no problem.
So thank
Thank
you
you so
so much,
much, sir,
guys.
for the
Thank you.
session.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Good night.
thank you so much,
Good night.
Deepansh. It really means a lot. I've learned a lot.
Thank you, sir.